We were never up to strength with the amount of people we should have. I think the most I ever had was 12 in my squad, and at one point I was down to 6. And we went into our brigade base camp for a few days, and we got replacements. And so I got first pick of the replacements because my squad was so low, just through just through guys going home. And in fact, Red McGinnis, he was the first guy I picked, and they were all standing there, and I saw him, and he has a big grin on his face. And I asked him what his name was, where he's from. He says, "I'm from the Ozarks in Arkansas."
Mhm.
And I said, "You hunt?" He goes, "Yep." I said, "You good?" He goes, "Get my deer every year." So I picked him. Uh, I'd never hunted, but I had a lot of respect for those guys that spent their time in the country. And my second choice was a guy from Louisiana who lived on a farm, Charles Bonds, and him and Red had become friends, and so they would. I had the point man train them both to alternate with him.
You mentioned Robert McGinnis. Um, what is his story? How did things play out?
He, after I came home, sorry, he was killed in action. And it was, I, I talked to some guys that were there, like Dennis Barton, who had been my RTO, contacted me and let me know. And then Peter Seo, who had been there also, and he told me what had happened. And it was it was poor leadership. There was a brand new lieutenant, a brand new platoon sergeant. The later part of June, I came home, and when I left we had a new platoon leader. He'd been there. He'd been there about a month. I was his platoon sergeant for about a month, and he had been an MP in Long Bend before he came to the field, and he wanted to get his combat infantry badge, I guess, for his career. Uh, and he's very, very affable. He could read a map. He was a whiz at map reading, but he was kind of cavalier. He didn't seem to me as like he was taking it seriously. And the platoon was supposed to go out on an ambush one night. Well, they found a place to set up their ambush, which had been a previous ambush site, and there were holes dug already. And Pete told me that some guys were smoking, which we never allowed that.
You can be smelled
Yeah, the
and enemy
smell
can
is
smell the smoke.
tobacco. And American cigarettes smell a lot different than what the NVA were smoking too. And then he said somebody even had a radio and was playing, Armed Forces Radio Vietnam would play music and stuff. And he said he was trying to get the attention of the platoon sergeant, to correct it, and they wouldn't pay any attention to him. Uh, and the North Vietnamese had that location zeroed in for their mortars. And about 2 in the morning, mortar tubes started popping, and Red was killed. The lieutenant was killed. Uh, two of the other guys that had been in my squad they were really good guys. They were wounded with shrapnel.
How long did you and Red, how long were you together in the field?
Probably about 9 months, I guess. Yeah.
So I wonder, and you think back on those 9 months and all of your many interactions with him, and I imagine you go through a lot together. Are there one or two particular memories that stand out in your mind when you think back about Red and the time you were with him in Vietnam?
Uh, yeah. One thing sticks out is he was always smiling. He always had a grin on his face. Uh, the only time I saw him get mad was he was walking point, and we were in an area where there had been a lot of activity, North Vietnamese activity, and my squad didn't have a machine gun, so I would have to borrow a machine gunner from another squad if we were going somewhere where we needed one. And we had borrowed machine gunner from another squad, and he was making some noise, and his ammo bearer was making noise. They were talking, and I heard it, and I told Red to stop, and I went back to where the machine gunners were, and Red came back right behind me, and he wasn't loud, but we were very stern as to that was going to stop immediately. And that's the only time I saw him when he wasn't smiling.